Is this the beginning of the Kelly Oubre as the fifth starter era? Because as I tried to lay it out before you got over here, I think the four starters are nailed on, right? And Embiid, Harris, Melton, Maxey. And then I believe there's a group of three guys that could potentially start. I think two of them are coming over in this deal. The other one is Oubre. I guess if you had to handicap it right now, who do you think jumps into the starting lineup?
I would guess probably Oubre, just because he is the one with the most familiarity with the system.
Yeah.
Of the two that you are saying came over, I assume one is Martin Jr. and the other is Covington. Are you going?
It's
Covington?
not actually. I was going to say
Covington's really struggled the last 2 years.
Yeah. He has gotten the chance to start this season to open the year in LA. He has not shot the ball well. And I do think one of the problems with Cov is that he's now basically a pure four. That it used to be he's kind of you could play him as a 3-4 when he was younger. I don't think he has that kind of positional versatility anymore. And I think because Tobias is best suited as a 4, you don't necessarily want to play two guys. Kind of the same problem as they have with PJ, right? Where PJ is absolutely a 4 in most meaningful ways. And so if you can get another wing on the floor, I think you play another wing, and Kelly's the easiest way to do that right now.
Yeah.
Knows the system, knows what Nick Nurse wants, doesn't have the, as we keep saying, the ramp up period that these other guys are going to have to go through. I do wonder though, if maybe just as like a token starter sort of deal, you get Covington in that spot and Oubre continues to be that change of pace off the bench. They have needed shot creation, still need shot creation off the bench. So I think that's probably the case for leaving Oubre in that role over the long term. In the short term, my guess is he would start.
Kelly is maybe the one that has the highest upside as a shooter, at least right now. I know his percentages are bad, but I think if he takes, it's going to sound really dumb, if he takes only the good shots and not some of the Kelly shots of he's taken prior years, and I think playing alongside Maxey and Embiid, he might have the best chance to do that and maybe not go completely wild. And I think we've mentioned this before, like his catch and shoot numbers. He shot last year, I think it was 37% off of unguarded catch and shoots and like 25% unguarded. If you can just get him more of the former than the latter, which I think you can probably do better with Embiid on the floor with him, then I think he might make sense. Like I said, in the short term, I agree with you that Cov, he has certainly taken a step back in terms of his perimeter defense and his versatility over the last couple of years. And the last couple of years, the shot has abandoned him. So I don't really think he is the one that you would go to. The other one to me would be, Kenny Martin Jr., just to get a little athleticism in there. But his shot's streaky too.
Well, so I was going to say, you don't think there's any chance that Batum might start?
There is. He's certainly, like, over the last couple of years, I don't know how he's done this year, but over the last couple of years, he's shot the ball pretty well.
Bad start to this season, but it's been 3 games.
But I think he's been right in the high 30s, low 40s.
39% last season, 40% the 2 seasons prior to that.
Yeah. So I think as a shooter, I just feel like he's 107, and I think he's not as old as I think he is because he's been in the league for so long.
Currently.
Okay. So
and will turn 36. No. He's 34. I'm aging, and he turns 35 in December.
Yeah. He might. I'd have to watch him more to see if he's taken a step back defensively or not. I'm sure he is. He's 34 going on 35, but if that's 1 step back or 2 or 3 steps back, but certainly I think he has a chance. I think it's also part of the reason why you just start Kelly right now, so you can then evaluate the guys that you just got back and see which one of them have the most left and fit the best within the core group.
So here's the case I'm going to make for Cub starting, but I'll dovetail off of the Batum points.
It would be the best content.
Well, it'll make more people mad if Cubs starts, because he was a very divisive player here when he was better than he is right now.
We're losing one divisive starter in PJ Tucker. It would make the most sense just to drop Cub into that.
I think if you had, now Nick could get to this by just being creative with the rotation, so maybe he gets there. But I think if you have Oubre in a reserve role, like a big reserve role, we'll say, and Batum in a pretty big reserve role, if Paul Reed continues to struggle, and we've talked about it a bit, he has not had a good start to the season.
Nope. And still 0 minutes alongside Joe.
I think if you're penciling in Batum with those backup minutes and Kelly with those backup minutes, all of a sudden you could maybe play some really funky and interesting small ball minutes, which the Clippers went to Batum as kind of a small ball center quite a bit over the last few years. I think that does get harder and harder, to your point, as he gets older. But imagine Joel hits the bench and you have a lineup of Maxey, DeAnthony Melton, Oubre, KJ Martin, and Batum, and you just have like tons of athleticism on the floor. And Maxey is flanked by all these guys who will just run and spread it out. And you have a bunch of decent-ish shooters on the floor at the same time. I think you can toy with that. I think that's harder to do if you start Kelly, and then you're essentially going to ask him to play 35 to 40 minutes. If you get into he's starting and he's going to be an important part of these backup groups with Maxey. So I don't know how you split the difference there. So you use Cove as like that placeholder starter. I do think he has a bunch of the same problems as PJ in that you can't ask him really to self-create. It's a lot of standstill threes, and that defensive versatility has been lost over the years. But I think he's fine in that role, and I would say I wouldn't close with him. It'd be more that's how you open the game and then figure it out as you go.
No, long term, I certainly think, Kelly, you probably went off the bench ideally. I just think early on in the process, it might be him just because he's more familiar. And you want to evaluate the guys. Interested to see what some of the people in the chat have to say. If you're not already a subscriber to our YouTube, be sure to subscribe so you can participate in the chat. And also so you get notifications for when we go on air. We do this 5 days a week. It would be great to have you.
That's the second reminder already. I'm so proud of you, buddy. We're really getting after it.
That's only the first time I reminded him, right?
That's true. I'm just saying. That's, normally I have to give you a little nudge over there.
Nudge. But it's also a good reminder because, then you can comment.
This is true.
I think this is a good discussion.
And we do have, speaking of the comments, Hinky Process asked, could Marcus Morris start or is he washed? I don't know what you've heard, Derek. The sense that I got from talking to people is that he's not really being brought here to play. And not saying that in so many words, but I think the quote unquote interesting guys that they're getting back, people that might actually be in Nick Nurse's rotation, are the three guys we mentioned, Cove, Batum, and Kenyon Martin Jr., who Martin Jr. has a lot of stuff he's got to figure out. To your point, very streaky shooter, not really sure how he fits in offensively if he can't shoot, which obviously is a big deal, but I think he's a potentially interesting defensive piece. Certainly, just like his dad was, is like a nuclear athlete, which Sixers haven't had a whole lot of those that can actually be functional rotation players. They've had why am I blanking on his name? Ray John Tucker. They've had guys like that who are great athletes and can't really play basketball. So I don't know, man. I'm feeling good. I feel like we don't have to talk about the nonsense mostly anymore, and they're getting some interesting rotation guys back.
Yeah, and to your point, I think Marcus is mostly here because he's $17 million. He's, of the contracts they got back, he is the biggest expiring contract. So I think he will be crucial for salary matching if they are able to make a trade here in a couple of months. I certainly agree with you that I don't see him as a likely starter. I agree. I think when you come off of the 3 games they just had and the way Tyrese Maxey has been playing, I mean, we just mentioned it in our last podcast yesterday where we're like, I know you have to have him back on the court, Harden, because you need to get his trade value up there. You really need to get other teams interested. That's not going to happen while he's holding out. So for them to get a decent return, again, I sort of graded it as a B. I might need to let that marinate a little more before, my opinion might change over time, or at least as I get more information. But I think to be able to get a decent return, give Tyrese Maxey more time to really develop that pairing with Embiid and just into who he will become as a player in this league. And now to have draft picks, they can trade 3 draft picks in a trade, to have a lot of matching salary, and to potentially have cap space if that doesn't work out at the deadline. I am overall pretty happy with where things stand. Yeah. Especially considering when you have one team that's interested, you have almost no leverage. So they get a B, maybe it drops down to a B minus. I don't know. I'll have to, like I said, I'll think about it. To get a B return when you have really no leverage outside of having the player is pretty good.
We all silly like the mayor.